Hey guys, I'm Adrienne and welcome to my channel, The Minimal Approach. So today, I will be talking about a subject that is very dear to my heart, especially for the past 2 weeks. I've been very inspired by an episode of the podcast Love to Sew. That podcast is hosted by Ellen and Caroline. If you don't listen to the podcast already, I urge you to do so. It's very interesting and they have many interviews and it's so inspiring. But anyway, so after listening to that episode, which is episode 37, I realized that I was a beginner and I was kind of fearless, And as Ellen or Caroline, I don't know which one of said it, but they said ignorance is bliss. And I think that's what got me into trying some harder projects, I would say, because I didn't know, right? So I think my third projects were pants, but cargo pants with lots of pockets, because I didn't know it was stuff. And my fourth project was a button-up shirt. So I just got into the adventure without really knowing what I was getting myself into. So I was pleased with the result on a short-term basis. But to be completely honest with you guys, my finishing sucked, really bad. And when I listened to that podcast, I was like, well, I really need to step up my sewing game because my garments won't last long. And I'm doing this because I want to avoid fast fashion and I want to have durable garments. And I thought, well, if I made it myself, of course it'll be more durable. But as a matter of fact, if you do not have the skills, it won't. So it was a bit of a disappointment, and yeah, it was a tough 2 past weeks for me, realizing that I really need to work on my skills and learn, going through waves of disappointment and just oh well, but this is a hobby and no, I need to push more and I need to learn more and I need to put in the work and maybe I should take some extra classes, maybe I should just stop making garments and just go back all the things that I've done, all the clothes that I've made, and just look at them and really dive into what went wrong and what went right. So that's what I did. I've been looking at all of my makes and really finding out what I love about them and what I really do not like about them, and really put in the work and correct what I want to correct. And if really it's it is not a good make and it didn't survive the washing machine or just me, well, I need to think of deconstructing it and doing another garment with it. And unfortunately for some pieces, I just need to go and give them to the fabric recycle program in Montreal. So really was a tough 2 past weeks. That's it for my experience. And today I'm coming with a new video of just exploring ways to finish your garments. As I mentioned earlier, seam finishing is a very important part of the sewing process. It makes the inside and the outside of your garment look more professional, and it just really makes your garment more durable. For me, it's all about getting motivated too, right? If I spend lots of time thinking about a new garment I want to sew and then sewing it, and after I don't know, 2 months, I cannot even wear the garment anymore because all the seams are tearing up or there's so much fraying, then I don't want to sew anymore. And I'll go and buy something from the store because at least I didn't spend all that time doing it, so it's less sickening to just have to get rid of it. So I'm doing this for a whole lot of reasons. So I'm sharing my experience with you, and I will really apply myself to do good seam finishing from now on because it became a very important subject for me and a very important sewing process as well. Okay, so today the first finished seam that we will explore is a serge seam. But what is a serge seam? Well, usually it's done with an overlock, and the sewing machine will cut the edges of the cloth as they go through. So as you can see here, the edge is very straight and it is perfectly lined up with the seam. So sergers or overlock machines are very useful, especially because they're fast, as you can do just one side finish, or you can hem both pieces of fabric together and then you get this raw edge that will never fray, and it is very useful. But if you're a beginner like me, you may not have like the money to buy a serger yet, so let's explore some other ways that you could finish your seams without a serger. Okay, so let's start looking at this fabric. That one is a woven cotton and it's fraying like crazy. If you do nothing about those edges, you will end up spending your time sewing a beautiful button-up shirt, let's say, and it will end up just like this after a few washes. So let me tell you, I was pretty disappointed when I discovered that my simple zigzag stitch were not enough. They were not enough, and now it's just like this garment I cannot wear anymore because it's just all the edges are really like looking terrible and destroyed. So I knew I had to do something about this since the zigzag stitch was just not enough. So I decided to just really dive into like the finished seams, and I thought what's best to just share this information with my YouTube friends. So let's go. First off, I decided I would use a flat felt seam since I have like lots of ease in this garment, so I thought I wouldn't mind like losing half an inch at every side and on the sleeves. That's the result, just to get you like motivated to keep watching, and we'll just see how I did. Okay, so let's say you did your first stitch and you placed right side together and you sewed like at 5/8 of an inch. I used like 2 different color of thread so you guys can follow along very well. So the first step to do a flat felt seam is to cut the seam allowance of one side only. There you go. Then you open it up and you give a good press. Okay, so now that the seam allowance is open and well pressed, you just basically wrap around the longest seam allowance over the other. And then you give this a good press. So now that that's well pressed, we'll go back to the machine and we'll stitch this right here along the edge. So now you can see I did like kind of a top stitch on the right side of the fabric. So as you can see, the seam allowance is enclosed in the seam, so this is very durable. It's used mostly in jeans, but now that I know about this, I use it a lot. It is more work, but it really pays off because it's super clean, no risk of fraying, and it's very durable, so I really love this. So that's a flat felt seam. So the next tool that we will use is an Overcast foot. My machine is pretty like basic and I have this foot. You can see that it has like one little sticking arm, and that will be where the thread will be going over, so we can do the Overcast stitch. We'll do a regular seam, right side facing, so you can see right here, this is my seam, so we'll open up the seam allowance and press it, and right here I will come at the edges and I will do an Overcast stitch. So this Overcast stitch really does a similar job to like a serger, but it doesn't trim the edge for you. So you really need to be accurate when you go with the machine and do the stitch, and the edge has to be cutted like pretty well, right? It's not like a serger that you know you have some tolerance and you'll just make it straight with the machine. Now you really need to kind of like know exactly where the edge will be and cut it prior doing the stitch. But it's a stitch that I discovered yesterday and I'm pretty amazed at what it can do. I really love it, and I think I will use this a lot in the future. You could do a zigzag too. It's just that I feel like the Overcast really goes over the edge, so it's very practical. But let's do a zigzag stitch on the other edge. So about the zigzag stitches. On the button-up shirt I showed you before, I did those zigzag stitch at the edge, but what I didn't do is I didn't cut the excess of fabric. So as you can see here, there's still plenty room for fraying. And after that, like after this happens, what you can do is a turn over. So you can just like turn over the fabric at the edge, and then you can do some sort of a stitch, but that stitch will either be apparent on the right side of the fabric, or you can just try to like conceal the fabric right here and do a stitch. So that's something you can do if you forget or like you don't cut the excess fabric and it's frays after that. For a smooth facing that gives like a beautiful finish, you can also do an all-in-one facing. So that means that you would cut a piece of fabric that would represent like the exact edge of your garment, and then you will sew right side together and just flip it over. So you would get this finishing that there's no edges because all the edges are encaved inside. I think this is pretty neat, and I also did interfacing in this one, so it's crisp. I really love this. And you can also do this for blouse. I think I've seen this method mostly in vintage patterns. So here you can see this one is an all-in-one facing as well. And as you can see, I just redid all the inside seams, so those are all flat felt seam because that shirt had frayed pretty bad. So I'm very happy, like it was lots of time to redo it, all those inside seams, but I know like now this blouse will last me a lot longer. So now we'll jump at the French seam. Those French seam are a double seam that encase the raw edges of the fabric. This method does require like few more steps than a regular stitch, but it really does like great job at looking professional, and your garment will survive a lot better every wash and just life in general. So in this particular case, I use it just to do an example because this is a knit and it would not likely fray, but I just really wanted to show you like it looks very good. So let's do an example just to show you. Let's say you have your two pieces and you go and put wrong side together. So that's a very weird concept. I mean, we never really do this. We always put right side together, but in this case we'll put wrong side together and we'll sew a stitch that's 1/4 inch from the edge. So now we have that seam that's super close to the edge. Now we will go wrong side facing us, so right side together, and we'll just sew like we would regularly, but making sure that we go at least 1/4 away from our last stitch. So now we did a stitch 1/4 away from our last stitch. Let's open this up to see, and here we have it, just a beautiful French seam. So there's no top stitching like we saw, let's say, in a flat felt seam, and on the inside we can see it's absolutely clean. You'll just need to press this and it looks beautiful. I love this. Okay, so here I have some double folded bias. You guys might have to correct me if I'm wrong because I never did this, but from what I understand is that you simply put your seam allowance in and you fold it over. Come and you do a stitch over the bias. So right here I did stitch the bias on the seam allowance, so it looks good. I bought some bias because I'm doing the Kelly raincoat from the Closet Case pattern, and they recommend using double folded bias, so I bought that one exactly for that, because I will never be caught again not finishing my edges when I'm doing a garment. There are two other type of stitch that I wanted to talk about, but I will do it in another video. So it's the stitch in the ditch type of stitch, and it's also the blind M stitching. I practiced the blind M stitching today while I was finishing up pants for work, but I never did the stitch in the ditch one, so I will definitely practice them to make sure to bring like a good tutorial for you guys in case you're interested by that. So another thing that I've been up to is creating a capsule wardrobe for spring and summer, and I'm really just diving in and trying to find as much information as I can, doing lots of research about it, and I'm doing a journal of like my journey, and I will definitely do a video about this too, so that's in the works. Also, I'm doing a cardigan from Jali, which is the Hélène pattern. I love it. I will also do a review on this pattern in the upcoming weeks. So this is it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, please do so to make sure you're not missing out on any of the other videos that are coming. And I would love to hear about your experience on seam finishing. When did you learn about it? Was it like so far along in your sewing like adventure? Was it like early on? Did someone teach you, or did you learn like by yourself? I would love to hear everything about it. So please comment below like what are your thoughts on this. And thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next sewing video.